What's up? A to Z Sports Live again on this Monday with another Doc Talk edition, talking about Hendon Hooker, his ACL recovery, as it's Monday of NFL Draft Week. And we've got Dr. Scott Arthur of the Bone and Joint Institute here with us live on this Monday with Sam Phelan, our Titans reporter. I'm Austin Stanley. Going to talk about how Hendon Hooker has really climbed up this draft board as he tore his ACL in November as the Vols lost at South Carolina late in the season this past year, and now has continued to have a lot of buzz about his name in this upcoming NFL draft later on this week, trying to figure out where the Vols quarterback might fall as the draft gets going in Kansas City on Thursday night. Dr. Scott Arthur of the Bone and Joint Institute. They are the region's destination of comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Doc, thanks for jumping on here. Did you think when we talked about Hendon Hooker's ACL tear back in mid to late November, that fast forward 6 or 7 months, that, hey, he could still be a first round pick in the draft? Did you expect that to happen?
Well, obviously, a lot to overcome. Do feel really positive about recovering from ACLs. And I think he's a guy that people like just from personality, experience, leadership, and everything else, that are willing to kind of look and say, hey, we feel like this guy's going to recover from the injury. Figuring out exact timings, obviously, the big question, is he going to be ready for the opener, or does that even matter for the team that's drafting him? But excited for him, obviously, as a Tennessee grad, looking forward to, see where he ends up and playing some good football. From
the quarterback's position, when you're looking at that specific position of an athlete, what is your biggest thought on how can this ACL impact them the most in that first year after the injury?
I mean, the interesting thing, there's a pretty good study in the NFL that looked at return to play and same or higher level and duration of career after ACLs, and quarterbacks was the most successful by far. I mean, it's not much more difficult as a linebacker or a running back, just from the position demands. Obviously, mobility is going to be the biggest challenge. I think, throwing mechanics and being able to drop back and throw and do his normal things are going to be probably pretty routine for him and easily accomplished. It's going to be more the mobility and how much is he going to try to run the ball and use that part of his game.
So I look at Hendon Hooker's timetable for where he's at now in the injury versus, right after the operation. And this was a report that came out from Ian Rappaport a couple months ago in November or in March, 3 months post-operation, that Hendon Hooker received positive medical reports in Indianapolis, but on track to be ready for the season opener. How is it possible that so far away, I guess, from his projected return, they already start having estimations that he'll be back? Is that a little premature in your opinion?
Well, I think it's hard to make a big call at this point. I mean, what you're hoping to see at 3 months, that he, his knee's not very swollen, he has full motion back, he's starting to get some good quad return, and ideally starting to do a little bit of jogging. And that would be a successful 3-month recovery. Now, how does that play out to being able to, run full speed, cut, jump, be fully athletic? You don't want to be behind right now, but being on track doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be ready to do something at a high level at any certain time frame.
When do you expect a quarterback to start throwing in practice or just off on the field on the side somewhere? Just because his pro day was late March and he didn't really participate in anything there.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably started throwing now. I mean, just doing, getting his arm in shape and starting to do some light throws. And then we'll kind of gradually work into doing true drops and getting his mechanics back right. But at this 3 to 4 month mark, he'll start throwing at this point.
And Hendon had been going on team visits where he's not doing a workout or necessarily football stuff, but a lot of teams use it for medical tests to get their own team doctors looking at a guy, see what they think of his medicals. What are some of the things that a team would be looking at right now to give them confidence in drafting him this week?
I mean, as we talked, I mean, it's hard. You can only expect so much. I mean, you want to see, that his quad's returning, he's getting his strength back, that he's moving around well. Probably what matters more than anything is any other injuries that we're seeing at the time of his ACL. So, major meniscus problems, cartilage injuries, other ligamentous problems. Obviously, they're going to have access to all that information. So I think it's probably worries you more is there something other than the ACL, as much as there is, how's he recovering from the ACL? So obviously they're checking to make sure if he's on track and that if he's meeting milestones. But that's it's only so much you can see from that at 3-month mark.
Dr. Scott Arthur with us here from the Bone and Joint Institute, talking about Hendon Hooker as he climbs up draft boards. Some people expecting him to go in the top 20 of Thursday night's NFL draft. Had the torn ACL in mid to late November, with the surgery happening later on in the winter. When you're having a player in like this for a visit, do you take them through MRIs and other type of testing from your knowledge? And can you look at an MRI and say, hey, your left knee is the injured knee. How does that look around it? And then do you look at the other knee for potential overcompensation problems? Are there things you can see by having tests done like that on an athlete?
I mean, we lean definitely more on physical exam. I mean, ACL is something that we're able to examine well and assess for symmetry. You want to make sure their motion is full and not having difficulty getting full extension of their knee muscle return. So, MRI probably marginally beneficial at this point, unless you have some concerns or of other issues. But as far as evaluating the healing of the ACL, a 3-month MRI wouldn't give you a whole lot of information.
Athletes returning from ACLs have kind of been on a wide spectrum of like how well they return. I can think of athletes like Robert Griffin III, Derrick Rose, who were never the same after the ACL and also were prone to like re-injuring the same knee or having knee issues throughout their career. Other guys do it and come back with no problem. Like Tom Brady had a torn ACL at one point, and that was, nipped it in the butt. You never heard of it again. So what makes an athlete more prone to re-injuring their knee, or is it just a one-off thing? Is it about the injury or the athlete?
I mean, probably multiple things. And like RG3 had, more than just his ACL. So I think, if an isolated ACL and your ability to return is much higher than if you start throwing in multi-ligamentous injuries or significant cartilage defects and problems. So that's part of it. Are some people more predisposed to injuries and difficulties, with just anatomy and hypermobility? Yes. A lot of what we try to do in rehab is address anything that needs to be addressed as far as muscle imbalance, flexibility, coordination, hip strength that can help prevent ACLs. That's progressed a lot. I mean, we're not perfect, but we part of the return to play is assessing those things we know that make athletes more likely to tear their ACL again. So we've come a long way in our ability to determine when someone's safe to return. And instead of just saying, all right, it's been 6 months, good luck, hope it works out. I mean, we do a lot more thorough assessment of mechanics and strength and just their muscle balance to see if they're able to return safely. But I think a lot of it is there are other factors. And then it's position. I think you look at positions too. Like I said, quarterbacks have a lot higher ability to return and because of the demands and the ability to, Tom Brady's able to drop back in the pocket and manage his game a little different than RG3 was. So obviously even at the quarterback position can be different.
Yeah. And Hendon tore his left knee, which is his front leg when he steps into a throw. And you got to imagine there's different, hesitation from the athlete's mind of stepping through a throw, putting that left knee up in front when, an offensive lineman could getting back into you or a D lineman rushing you. How do you go about, trying to have the athlete trust the knee from a mental aspect throughout the rehab process?
I think that's a very big part of it. That it's one way is just gradual progression. So you get them trusting jogging a little bit, then you get them trusting change of direction, jumping, cutting, and then just working through the throwing drills too. I mean, so doing it lightly and controlled or throwing a 10-yard pass, not trying to rip it the first time you get out there. So I think adding incrementally small challenges to where they trust it. And then even now, sports psychology comes into it. I mean, something we underestimate a little bit, the confidence side of returning. Because when you look at people returning their first year, a lot of times their performance is down a little from prior to injury. How much of that's physical and how much is psychological, difficult to answer. But I think there's definitely a component of it. It's trust and the ability to not be worried that next step they're going to feel another pop and starting over again. So I think that's an important part it's part rehab and then part, even the sports psychology side of things.
Yeah. We talked a lot, I guess, with guys like Taylor Lewan, Bud Dupree, who mentioned that, they might have rushed it back a little too early that first year, but after the first full year, going into the second season post ACL, they felt way better. Have you seen that become a trend over the last several years of studies and research of athletes? That second season feels a lot more confident.
Yeah, I think so. I think most people would say when it's that, all right, they're back at whatever it is, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, and they're able to compete, perform, but they don't feel like they're 100%. And it's usually that second season that they're able to really feel like they're as good or better than they were before. So I think that's pretty consistent.
Yeah, I guess a full 2 off seasons, a rehab off season, because you're always going to ruin some season with an ACL just with the nature of it being a 10 to 12 month injury, kind of bleeding into one season after the other. I got a question from Lucas here on Facebook. I'm not sure if you know the answer to it, but Robert Woods had a clean ACL tear, which is what he mentioned last offseason. With Hendon Hooker, I don't necessarily think we know if it was a clean ACL tear or not, but in your definition, what is a clean ACL tear versus maybe some other things going on with it?
Yeah, I think it's that, like we talked, isolated, being purely an ACL tear with no other pathology. So meniscus, cartilage, articular surface, other ligaments all being completely normal. So I think that's a very big part that's a predictor for, time to return and then ultimate likelihood of being able to return to the same level. So that's obviously, I think when you ask what everyone's looking at and looking at his records, that's a big part of it. Is there anything else that worries you?
Yeah. Dr. Scott Arthur here with the Bone and Joint Institute talking about Hendon Hooker. Feels very likely that he'll hear his name being called in the first round of the NFL draft on Thursday. Doc, it's been 13 and a half years since you did my left knee. So isn't it weird? Doesn't that feel like a long, long time ago?
It hurts me every time you tell me. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thanks for jumping on here again. Appreciate all you guys do at the Bone and Joint Institute. And we'll see how high Hendon goes. And for the Vols' sake, hopefully it is a first-round pick. And then maybe see if Joe Milton can do the same for us with those diplomas in our office. So appreciate the time and hope you have a great rest of the week.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
See you guys.